What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Foxbody Junkie YouTube channel. I'm Brandon, and today we're going to be working on an 86 GT T-Top project car. So for today, we're going to be working. Get the hood hinge up here of the prop rod. So we're going to be working on getting all of this stuff out of here. When I do an engine bay, I rip everything out. You can kind of leave some stuff in place if you're not worried about it, get it painted, stuff like that. Some of these, obviously a lot of the stuff was painted with it being in here already. So like all the brake lines and the proportion valve and all that stuff, they're already painted black. I don't love it, but I don't hate it. It'll be okay for what we're doing. But the rest of this stuff, all this fuel lines and all this, the coil and the MSD system, everything needs to come out. All this junk ass wiring that's in here, that whatever. So all this needs to come out of here. And then, you know, once we start getting most all of this stripped out, I'm probably just going to start working on getting a lot of this stuff fixed, hammer and dollying this flat, welding this crack back up, welding this up, getting that flat. So I probably will have to take off this fender to get all of that done. We're going to take the hood off of it. I'm going to paint. I'm going to leave the center of it black, but I'm going to paint the edge right here body color, so when you open it up it kind of looks finished. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, front bumper's got to come off. We got to fix this. They cut that out, so I've kind of got a plan for that. We'll see if it works out. What else? We got to fix this. We got to take this off, fix all this stuff. But for now, I'm going to get to work. Once I get everything stripped down, you'll get a clear picture of what needs to get done. And yeah, we'll just go from there. All right, y'all. Been busy. Got most of everything out of the engine bay. There's still a few things left in there, but got some good news, got some not so good news. So turn the camera around, show you guys what I'm talking about. All right. Let's go ahead and zoom out here a little bit for y'all. So good news-ish is all of this doesn't look terrible. I think I should be able to hammer and dolly this. I am going to have to take this fender loose to go ahead and fix this crack. The metal is actually protruding over the fender. So we'll go ahead and do that. Also over here, we should be able to hopefully take these stupid welded on nuts and this bolt off of here and hammer and dolly this out back pretty straight. This little crease isn't really too big of a deal. Now for the not so good news. Well, the not so good news is that ugly piece of shit lower radiator support. Yeah, check that out. Woo-wee, that's pretty, y'all. Now, granted, I probably should have saw this when I bought it, and I usually do look at the lower radiator support. However, if you guys remember, I told you there was a door molding covering it. So, no shit, they had this door molding up all the way over here. Like that. See, when you put it like that, it doesn't look too bad. And when you look at it from the bottom, it also doesn't look terrible. But when you take it off, you see the real beauty of it. So, two things. I already ordered a lower radiator support for it. I'm just going to put a tubular bolt on one, so it won't hold us up from getting the engine bay painted. I'm going to go ahead and chop it off. And then when the bolt-in one comes in, we'll go ahead, we'll just bolt it in. All good there. Does cut into the budget a little bit more. Not expected, but sometimes it's how it goes. And the other thing is, I'm going to have to go ahead and test fit this radiator back in here. Because I'm worried that they went ahead and cut this. Sorry for the background noise. I'm worried that they went ahead and cut this for clearance to fit that radiator. You guys can really see how mangled this thing is over here. So, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and cut that off. But here's the engine bay. Went ahead and got all the wiring out of here, basically everything. Booster, master, wiper motor. We still have these brake lines we got to get out of here. I am going to leave all of the AC and heater stuff there. Reason being, I'm going to delete the AC lines right there. And I'm actually going to make a new foam piece that gets rid of all of that. So I don't care if it gets overspray on it. And went ahead and took the nuts off for the heater box. And then, like I said, I'm going to remove all those brake lines. They did weld a bracket in here for the fuel pressure regulator, so I've got to go ahead and remove that. I've got to pull this line out that was going up to that. And then next thing I'm going to work on is getting this sway bar out of here. I got to get the steering rack out of it because I'm going to put power steering back on it. This is a manual rack, as well as the steering shaft. So that's all going to basically come out as one unit. And then we'll go ahead and get everything. We'll try to start body working small stuff and removing bolts, hammer and dolly, and just kind of get stuff roughed in today. So that's the plan. Let's get at it. All right, what's up, y'all? Went ahead and got everything stripped out of the engine bay, took the steering rack, sway bar, all that stuff out, and then I went ahead and actually started working on fixing the fender aprons. I also worked on getting the radiator support, the top side fixed up, and then we actually went ahead and cut the bottom section off, and we ordered a tubular one, bolt-in deal, so shouldn't really stop us from painting anything. But yeah, went ahead and welded up all the cracks on the fender aprons and dollied everything out as good as I could. I'm going to run an Anderson power pipe on this, and that requires you to open up the hole a little bit, which is actually kind of a blessing in disguise, because once I welded up all the cracks and everything, the hole exactly wasn't symmetrical. So I was able to make it look a lot better by doing so. And then also the battery mount, I'm not sure if I touched on it, but the lower battery mount that sits inside the frame rail, that was also was basically fully rusted out, and so I put a patch in that area as well. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera around and show you guys what it looks like. So here we are. Let's see if we can zoom out a little bit. All right, so if you guys remember, there was a really big crack coming down. It was actually kind of a two-piecer. So started by welding that up, got the bracket removed off of the shock tower as well. This was really kind of bad. It still has a little kind of kink right here in this area. And then the crack actually came from right here all the way down. So I had to weld that up and build up that material in that area. It's not perfect, but it's definitely something that we can work with. There was a couple holes that were drilled in here that weren't factory, so I went ahead and welded those up. And that's pretty much it for this side. As you guys can tell, the apron is a lot more straight now up in the top here. It looks a lot better. We can live with it for now. I think it'll be pretty good. If somebody really wanted to do something with this car by the time I paint it and whatever, you could put like a Scott rod, maybe either like a rivet in panel, and paint match those. It would look half decent. So this side, same thing. It had a crack from here all the way to here, so I welded that up. There was a big kind of bend here in this apron as well, and tried to dolly out most of that. You can still kind of see the remnants of it, so I'm not sure how that's going to look when it's painted, but the good thing is there's a battery that goes here, so we're hopefully going to be okay on that front. Same thing on this side. There was a big crack that ran all the way down right here, and then a bunch of just random holes that were put in here. If you guys remember, there was, this one is an original hole, but there was two holes like right in this area from that that power block that they had in there. So yeah, I'm probably gonna grind that smooth just so there's not a sharp edge on it. I could weld that one up too, but probably not. So it's maybe, we'll see. Won't take me but a minute. I might weld that one up. So yeah. Oh yeah. And then there was a big, basically this whole section from about here to here was rusted out, which a lot of them do. The batteries just leak a little bit, and then they rust out in that area real bad. So I went ahead and welded in a plate and then ground it all down, and then we went ahead and drilled our hole for the bolt, and then cut out our square to make it look somewhat factory. And then this area here we also worked on quite a bit. It's not 100% perfect, but I think once I get a couple layers of primer on here, it'll look pretty good. If you guys remember, from about here to here, it was all cut out. Somebody cut it off, so at least now we've got the right look. There was a hole right here, went ahead and welded up. There was a hole in this area too that I welded up. Yeah. Oh, and then I guess one of the big elephants in the room is we have no lower radiator support now. So went ahead and chopped them off flush with the frame rail. And yeah, that should work out pretty good. So now from this point, we've got everything cleared off the firewall and I've got all my repairs done. I'm going to go ahead and get the pressure washer out. I'm going to go ahead and pressure wash all of this stuff. And then yeah, I guess we're going to start sanding after that. So let's get to it. All right, so next day here. Sorry I didn't film hardly any of the process leading up to where it's at right now. I just got busy and in the mood to just work and not film or do anything. I didn't even take pictures. So went ahead and got everything sanded down. So in order to sand it, I went ahead, since this engine bay was painted with probably some sort of rattle can black whatever paint, I just made the decision that I was going to prime the whole thing, which is always good to prime it anyway. I had some good sand scratches and deep gouges where I did all the welding work and all that. So went ahead and took some 80 grit to the entire engine bay, got all the loose paint, and went over all the sand scratches and kind of got those looking pretty good. And then after the 220, I just did or after the 80 grit, then I did 220. Did the same thing, went over it, and then I take my water hose and a Scotch-Brite with some Dawn dish soap and go over the whole engine bay with a couple Scotch-Brites and the red ones. And that's pretty much how I prep out all my engine bays, especially if they're getting primer. That's really all you need to do. So without further ado, I'll turn the camera around and show you guys what it looks like in primer now. And yeah, let's talk about it. All right. So looks a little bit different. All of the red stuff is actually just guide coat. Just I sprayed it some quick, had some like little base coat in a can that I sprayed on there, sitting on the shelf. So I went ahead and did that. So that'll tell me where I sanded, where I haven't, and kind of some of my lows. Now we're not going crazy trying to make this thing show body work perfect, but I do want to make sure that I get everything sanded, and that's a good way to go ahead and do that. So one thing that we did do is we pulled out our shocks and springs and stuff, just so I could get paint on the top side of the shock towers. You can leave them on if your alignment's already set and you guys know you're not going to swap out any of your caster camber plates or anything like that. You can leave them on there. But if I go to sell the car and somebody wants to put a set of caster camber plates on the car, the last thing I would want is for them to take the stock ones off and then there not be any paint underneath of there. It would look kind of like shit in my opinion. So I always try to paint mine with nothing on the tops. That way, like I said, if anybody wants to upgrade in the future, they can do that. So some of the most, I guess, the worst spots of all of this is just kind of down in here in this frame rail. It had a lot of pitting, just surface rust pitting, and this is actually kind of built up primer over here. So we're going to work on sanding all that down. And what I'm going to do is some of the more rough areas I'll hit with some 220, just really light. And then I will go ahead and go back over it with 320. And then I'll do the same thing, just red Scotch-Brite Dawn dish soap, and we'll wash everything down. And then I'll let it dry for about 24 hours after blowing it off. So one thing that I did that I hate seeing people do was I left the seal in place. Now my game plan for that is I'll probably pull it out before paint, and then I'll tape it up and I'll just hit that with some fresh black. The seal on the bottom for the heater core, the whole dash assembly is going to come out of that, so that foam's going to come out with it, and I will paint that black whenever I do that. The foam, we already talked about that. I'm going to get rid of all the AC stuff and put a new heater core in it and make a new foam piece, so that'll all be fresh. So there won't be anything that has overspray on it, really. And then, like I said, with the K-member, we're just going to dust some paint on it on the top sides, and then maybe do like the bottom half in black, kind of like how you see now, but it'll just be red. So that way when you look down in on the side, it's at least got some red paint on it, and then, you know, the bottom will be black, and we'll touch up the control arms and go from there. But all of the areas that we worked on actually look halfway decent when they were wet with some primer. They're not perfect by any means. However, like I said, just want this thing to look better. If it had a red engine bay, I'm not even sure I would have painted it, but I can't stand black engine bays, or we'll say I can't stand non-body colored engine bays. So that's why we're doing all this. And yeah, so like I said, went ahead and took all of the stuff out of here. It's actually not in too bad a shape. I did wash it, put some etching primer on some of the welds. I was going to grind them down, but I don't really care on this one. Did primer the backside of the frame rails a little bit, and yeah, so we'll go ahead and scuff this again whenever we go to paint it. This one does have some pretty thick undercoating. You can kind of see where the fender liner was, so it's got some pretty thick undercoating on there. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot I can do about that, so it'll probably just get left in place, and we'll clean it up as good as we can. I could spend some time with probably a heat, a little torch, and kind of scrape all that off, but honestly, this is not the car for that. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead, we'll take the bumper off of it, and I'm going to get to sanding, and whenever I'm done, I'll kind of touch bases with you guys and kind of show you what it looks like. But let's get to it. Okay, so it's been some time. I apologize for the wind noise, what we got out here in the desert, but hopefully I got some nicer weather tomorrow and we can try to get this thing sprayed in here. So I spent the last couple hours sanding all this stuff down, washing it, getting it all clean. I am going to do another clean before I actually paint it, but this basically ensure that I don't have anything kind of hiding in the rails and all that stuff. I always blow the frame rails out with compressed air, and then I wash them out with water and all that, and try to get in there as good as I can if the holes are open and whatnot. But this area turned out okay. There's still some pitting and stuff in there. Obviously, we're going to have a battery here. You know, all of your starter solenoid and coil and all of that stuff is on this side on an 86. So not the end of the world if that's not perfect. This side looks okay. We did, I'm not sure if I mentioned it or not, but we did cut the hole for the power pipe. I'm going to run an Anderson power pipe, or I may end up running possibly like a 45 degree, just regular tube about that size. And we're going to wrap a either like the trim edge molding, or we'll do the old school vacuum hose trick on that deal. But as far as everything else goes, it looks pretty good. If you guys are kind of wondering about, you know, oh, there's still some like little red and whatnot in the cracks and crevices and in certain areas, yes, there is. And the reason why is what you're seeing is orange peel, right? So this area here, for instance, that's sanded flat. There's no orange peel in it anymore, but down in here there's a little bit of orange peel left, and it's really hard to get all of that orange peel out of there, and you'll spend days trying to get it. So like I said, I more so use the guide coat as a tool to make sure I sanded everything and got all of my areas that I wanted to get flat done, and that's what I kind of use it for. There are going to be some areas where you're still going to have some guide coat left over. That's just kind of how it is. So moving forward, we're going to go ahead and take the hood off of here, and because I want to go ahead and paint the kind of the edge of the hood. I'm going to leave the center black just because I don't want to use a bunch of paint. I didn't buy a lot of paint, and I'm not sure how well it's going to cover in this engine bay. So we're just going to paint the edge of the hood, and that should look a lot better than it just being black. So with that being said, that'll be the next thing that we do. There is a couple burn throughs, if you guys are wondering. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and put some etching primer on all of this stuff before I put some color down. So we'll do some etching primer in a can, let it dry for a little bit, and then we'll roll straight into the red base coat that I bought for this. So that pretty much is that. So I will catch you guys up to speed whenever we got some paint on this thing. All right. What's up, y'all? Welcome back. So been some time since I filmed last. Like I said, I had it primered, and I was going to go ahead and put the self-etching primer on it and let you guys know when it was painted. Well, it's painted. It turned out pretty decent. Not my best job I've ever done, but it looks pretty good given the circumstances and the conditions that I've sprayed everything in. And you know, it's always kind of hard going over a car that has problems in the engine bay, we'll just say. You know, with all of the cracks and all the, you know, bent up kind of sheet metal that I fixed on the car, and you know, a little bit of surface rust that it had in the frame rails, and fixing the battery box stuff, and just doing all that. You know, I'll say it turned out pretty good. There are a couple areas where I had some fisheye problems on the first coat of clear. I'll be all upfront and honest. The driver's side shock tower's got some fisheyes on it. Everything else that kind of got them, I was able to pretty much kind of bury them, as I like to call them. So those areas might have a little bit more orange peel look to them, but for the most part it looks pretty good. And once we get all the stuff put back in here, you won't even really notice most of it. So without further ado, I mean, well, you guys kind of already probably saw it in the intro, but so let's look at it again. There you go. Like I said, it looks pretty good. I did have, so this is that area that I had to fix. Obviously we had a bunch of cracks down in here and up in here, and I was really kind of worried about how this area would look. And to be honest with you, now that it's got paint on it, I actually think it looks pretty good. Radiator support turned out really pretty good. There's a couple little things wrong with it, but for this car and what we're trying to do, I think we've given this thing a definite new lease on life in terms of the engine bay looking half decent. So you guys can see where I did my little repair down there. There are kind of a couple like divots down in there in the frame rail. That's actually just surface rust that was down in there. Some pitting from that. So is what it is. You don't really notice the fisheyes on the shock tower too bad. They kind of look like orange peel more than anything. Remember, we're gonna do new foams for the HVAC stuff, so don't mind that too much being painted red. This is kind of how I like to spray all of my stuff. The hood hinge will basically be open about right there. It might have a little bit of stuff that you can see, but not too bad. The cowl's got a little bit more orange peel than I'd like for it to have, but everything else looks pretty good. Color match, I'm not sure how well it's going to pick up on camera. Once I polish this out, I think it's actually going to match pretty good, so pretty happy about that. We still need to paint the bottom side of the hood, but this was a big step in the right direction, getting this car put back together. So from now, or from here, we're actually going to work on getting the, so on the K-member, you guys can leave it down in the comments. I kind of sprayed like the top half, kind of similar how the factory would have done. And my plan is to just kind of touch up the bottom half with just some gloss black. And that way, when you're kind of looking at the engine, you know, from the engine bay, and you look down in this area, it's got paint on it. So I think once I get the rack back in there and kind of spray some fresh black on the bottom, kind of blend it in, it'll look pretty good. That's what I'm gonna do with that. As far as the fender wells, we did touch those up as well. Try to move this out of the way here and not scratch anything. So I just touched these up. I didn't go crazy. I actually just left it base coat. I didn't clear any of it, but it's just got a nice fresh coat of red on it. That way when you look in here, it's somewhat clean and it doesn't look bad. So that's what we did on that. I did go ahead and order ball joints because these are smoked, at least the boots anyway. So when we do the ball joints, I'll go ahead and I'll clean up the control arms, shoot some fresh black on there, and we'll do new ball joints and put the spindles and stuff back together on it and get this thing to where it's a roller again. That is the game plan from now, is getting this thing back as a roller. That way we can keep on trucking at it. I did leave that grommet in place there. That's for the cruise control stuff. Not running cruise control on this deal, so went ahead and left it there. Yeah, like I said, nothing too crazy in the you know, back here, but just enough to where when you know, maybe whoever buys it, if they want to put a K-member in here, like an aftermarket one, and do some nice coilovers or something, it looks good back here. So it's not all nasty, dirty, old paint. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it, y'all. Let me know what you guys think. Like I said, I think given the circumstances, conditions, everything that it was painted in, I think it turned out pretty good. So appreciate y'all for watching. And like I said, next thing we're going to do is work on getting this thing back into a roller. I need to get the brakes lines put on it, get all that stuff cleaned up, and just start getting this thing put back together. So one step at a time, ain't nothing to it but to do it, y'all. So we'll see you in the next one, and I thank you guys for watching.